reminiscing on the jetpack mint, one of the things that was really interesting is there was kind of this slightly abstracted value proposition right at the time, which was like, hey, these are digital items that will be used for you to fly in a metaverse space that is actually tied to reality. I think one of the things I've been loving, kind of how thingies are working. The thingy is the entry point for you to have your own AI artist working. Like, that's a crazy thing. I've just been like scrolling through all the thingy art that's been made recently. It really is awesome. I want to just take a moment to be like, to geek out on that. It's something that, I don't know, I've been using Midjourney for a while now, and to see it kind of like things like that begin to interweave in a really fun, creative way for holders is really, really inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's been such a fun project for us. And we were playing with all of these ideas almost a year ago that we kind of first launched thingies. When, Midjourney and DALL-E and all of them came to market, we were like, okay, we've got to move on this a little bit quicker. I mean, it's been so fun to watch the rollout of the thingy utility. And this is still just the very early stage. We're introducing kind of user prompts to allow them to have greater creative control of what's being produced. And there's a whole range of really fun stuff that our gigabrains in the AI R&D department are working on, new utility that isn't even being done by anyone like Midjourney or DALL-E at this stage. This is what I love about this space, is it's just such an incredible opportunity with this intersection of creatives and technology to just experiment and create new fun utility and projects. But a lot of it's very driven by a strong lore narrative. And I think that's where you get this incredible opportunity in the space to take very complex and abstract ideas and shape them in a way using storytelling. So to take these really complex ideas and format them and present them in a way that's just a kind of fun user experience, and it's got some cool lore and storytelling around it, it's really cool. And I think that's what is needed to get Web3 to mass adoption, because the user experience, as we've seen for a lot of it, is kind of the most difficult part in onboarding people. So if you can take all of this complexity out of Web3 and just kind of layer this incredible fun user experience and content narrative on top, then that's how we are able to bridge that gap and start bringing in more and more people. For me, the metaverse is far more around the intersection between digital and physical. So yes, obviously virtual reality plays a part in that, but I think augmented reality is really where the bigger opportunity is right now. And it's a lot of an easier on, because it's still kind of grounded in the familiar. And that's where you guys have really been leading the charge on that. So hats off to you.
AVAs are kind of like our flagship IP with Michael Bay.
I'm very interested to hook up with entrepreneurs like yourself, because you're introducing me to a new world. As a kid, I liked world building myself. Why I was interested in hooking up with Jadu is because I'm trying to learn this Web3, and I really do believe AR is a real wave of the future.
You were just saying about AR and NFTs, and I think NFTs are interesting, right? Because they're not really a medium onto themselves. They're really just kind of a technology that you can use to enable a bunch of new things.
Yeah.
And I have been working in AR for around 7 years, and only in AR. I started getting to a point where I was like, you know what? I want to work with technology, but I want to do things that are expressive in nature.
Yeah.
And I felt a responsibility to do that as well, because, I'm from Pakistan, and I feel like a lot of brown Desi people that move to, the US end up in technology.
Yeah.
But they don't end up expressing, themselves in any meaningful way. So when I started playing with AR, I thought that this is actually a tremendous medium of expression. There's a lot you can do with it.
How I got interested in AR, when video games came out, I was always that guy trying to go off the track and see what's over here, what's over there, all right? But they would keep you on that track. I liked exploring around the game. And then about maybe 17 years ago, I wrote a video game. I sat down and wrote 3 pages. It was a story, and it was from an idea from Ivan Becky. He worked at NASA when I was doing Armageddon. This was my 3rd movie, and they gave me this guy for, I think, 2-3 days. And someone from my office gave this concept to these guys who created Call of Duty and whatnot, and they go, oh, this is a great game thing. And they came to me, and I read it. I'm like, oh, that's a cool concept. Who wrote it? They go, you wrote it. I'm like, oh my God. And then I thought it was a great movie. So it's actually now getting made. Well, the game right now.
Is this actually the Unreal thing you were showing me?
Yes. So as we're creating the movie pitch idea to Sony Pictures that bought the movie, I was using Unreal with Rob Legato, who created Lion King and whatnot. He was a visual effects supervisor of Titanic. And we kind of hot-wired Unreal to make more film kind of imagery. I could literally create 30 shots in an hour, whereas storyboarding would take days, like weeks for that. So that's when I started to understand this concept of Web3. People talk about Web3. I'm like, what is Web3? They go, well, it's a place. I'm a filmmaker and I'm a storyteller and I build worlds. And it's a place where people can come into a world that I build, a 3D space that they can move into. I can give some story ideas, then they can help me change the story, and then I could change the story a little bit, and then they have to keep doing it so they can help me build the story.
I think Web3 and Metaverse and all these are, at the end of the day, like kind of marketing terms, you know what I mean?
Right.
And like often when you give something a term, it starts to define some culture and a movement and ethos around it.
Right.
There are a lot of good reasons why a lot of normal, reasonable people are not interested.
Yeah.
But the opportunity at the same time is so significant. You know, it's like, the way I think of it is you get to build both economic systems and other forms of like community participation systems.
Right.
And you get to iterate on them very quickly.
Yeah.
Rapid iteration, you know, and you can arrive at very new things with that. So what you just said is actually like a really core pillar of how we want to do things. The type of world building we're now interested in is how do you allow fan fiction itself to become part of the canon of the world, like the, you know, kind of the core of the world. Because if done well, I think that this is going to lead us to fictitious worlds that are actually insanely detailed stories that unfold on a cosmic level, on an atomic level, on every level. You know?
And they can explore this world that I create, and they can help me make the story.
So for example, right, with AVAs, right, like the way we think of this release is we wanted to build an avatar.
Right.
Because an avatar is, you know, like a character. It's an identity that you play in a world. We wanted to build this avatar collection where there are basically around 11,000 different robots and they're all unique. What we're interested in is more of the AR aspect of it. Because what's interesting with the AR aspect is it is a game world, but it's on top of the physical world. Line gets blurred in a very interesting way. Like, so if you own, let's say, a hoverboard in Fortnite, right? Like you would say, I own a hoverboard in Fortnite. But when you own one of our hoverboards, you kind of psychologically say, I own a hoverboard. Like in no world, I just own a hoverboard here, you know? So it like psychologically does a really interesting thing. So AVAs are basically like 11,000 characters. They're supposed to be kind of citizens in our world, and every person that owns an AVA then kind of develops and role plays as that character. And in a weird way, they're all main characters, right? Like because they get to play themselves, but at the same time, they're in a community. So certain main characters will also emerge, and like people will kind of have their own identity.
Before I continue, if you're new to the channel, hi, welcome. I'm Jerry, host of Into the Futureverse, where I cover alpha and updates on all things FLUF World and the Futureverse ecosystem. And if you enjoy this content, consider supporting the channel by smashing that like button, hitting subscribe, and hitting the notifications bell so you get all my videos in a timely fashion.
Our aha moment for the AVA lore, this idea that these are kind of like foreign entities that are coming to reality, to our world. And that is everything, you know, for AVAs, they're coming through an interdimensional portal space. For all of our partner collections, they're able to step out of the digital spaces they exist in back into reality in a lot of ways.
It's something that we're really exploring as part of the kind of wider Futureverse ecosystem that we're pulling together at the moment. The Central Pass team have been doing a lot of incredible work on the digital identity space, because that's, I think, one of the most crucial parts to really pulling this whole Web3 experience off is how do you manage your digital identity in this trustless environment and ensure that it's handled in a way that allows things like, you know, moderation to work on a reputational framework, so bad actors kind of can get shut down and can't just keep spinning up new accounts and keep being bad actors. We may have started as an NFT company or kind of, you know, seen ourselves as that in the early days, but it's definitely not where we are now. As non-fungible labs, we've redefined ourselves as more of a future media company. And I think a great reference point is Disney, because Disney in of itself are a technology company. They have an incredible, massive tech stack and bunch of proprietary technology in there, but very few people engage with that or are passionate about a certain component there. I mean, you know, NFTs are just a tech standard at the end of the day. So it seems weird to kind of define yourself as a MongoDB company or a PDF company or something like that. Whereas if you focus on that kind of top experiential layer, which is what Disney does, they build these incredible worlds, they tell these incredible stories, and that's what gets people really engaged and emotionally involved in them. If you're able to take that model but allow actual user input and user investment in it, then it increases that level of engagement, that level of immersion, that level of emotional connection from everyday people into the stories that are being told. And the importance of these stories cannot be underestimated. I think, a company like Disney actually have such a massive impact on society because, kids all over the world are watching these movies as they grow up and they're learning valuable life lessons.
When we die, our bodies become the grass, and the antelope eat the grass. And so we are all connected in the great circle of life.
From the stories that are being told, the narratives, the interactions, the social dynamics, all of this sort of stuff, as these stories, it's about how to kind of believe in yourself, how to, deal with difficult situations, how to grow through adversity, all of these incredible life lessons that are being imbued into these stories. And that's where this incredible opportunity now to take that very powerful visual storytelling, but do so in a bit more of a community-driven manner is just such an incredible opportunity for us. Always fun to kind of show people what's going on in the background as well. And I think, to be able to give that like behind the scenes peek is really fun to allow people to see the creative process, because it gets a lot of people inspired as well to kind of delve in and play with these sorts of tools themselves.
We're really enjoying about kind of this building in public perspective is like, one, it lets people see it's possible. And it takes it from this kind of like completely unimaginable idea to really seeing it's like, okay, we're seeing how the assets are built, we're seeing how things are being rolled out. This feels achievable. And as we start, like you're mentioning, like getting these tools in people's hands, I think it gives them a bit of a much clearer roadmap of like, hey, there's like these 5 mountains you need to climb to get to this place, versus just kind of like heli dropping someone in on top of Mount Everest and be like, we're here. I think could be super a little bit discombobulating. But then also, I think you're right. It's like it gives people so much more investment to have been part of the journey rather than simply seeing it at the end when it's all done and dusted.
How do we build this next stage of the internet and ensure that all of these things like sustainability and individual empowerment and these sort of things are being taken into account? If we're looking at from the wider Futureverse ecosystem, I think, everything from what we're developing with the Root network, which is very specialized layer 1 and layer 2 blockchain, purpose-built for the metaverse with cross-chain interoperability with everyone from Ethereum, XRPL, and, the Ethereum layer 2s, Polkadot. And once again, it's about building bridges, not walls. So we want to build that infrastructure layer in a way that's as easy to use as possible, and having in parts a kind of Web 2 user experience there where people can jump in and buy assets without having to go through the current process of setting up a self-custody wallet. People can pay with whatever cash or tokens, fiat, whatever they have, because we do all the exchanging in the background in real time. You then take it up a level to the kind of different protocols and applications that sit on top of that, which is things around your digital identity, communications framework, artificial intelligence protocols. I mean, speaking on AI, at the moment, there's all of this incredible development happening, but all of the training that's going into AIs is being driven by everyday people, but the value there is going to the owner of the AI, which is, your Google or Facebook or whoever it may be. So to drive that mission of decentralization and DAO-driven governance of artificial intelligence is really important when it comes to powering individuals around this truly groundbreaking technology. You build out further from that as well, and you take it up to this content level, and that's where it really is, as I say, about how do we build this top experiential layer that removes all of that complexity around kind of bringing people into blockchain and Web3, and really just takes it back to, I guess, a current kind of Web 2 experience, but with all of the the positive components of Web3. Because long term, look, like I don't expect everyday people to care about NFTs or blockchain more than they care about SSL or, C++, but I expect that they'll use them every day because it creates a seamless user experience and it solves a lot of these kind of problems around individual ownership of assets and identity. To take that even further, I mean, for myself as an individual, I come from, quite a diverse kind of project management background across everything from tech to hospitality, musical theatre, construction, but also did a lot of philanthropic work and running a charity out in Lebanon to see the opportunity to empower everyday people with kind of creative tools. But you see when you give people these tools, and we see it even, with older people in our community, we give them assets, we show them how to use things like Blender and that, and they just go in and play. And it's incredibly fun to watch because there is a massive undervaluation on the kind of creative process, which I think is only being shifted now with Web3. Because I believe that we are all born very creative, but the current education system doesn't necessarily support that. So allowing people these tools to explore their creativity, to explore their own individual identity, but to have a kind of, a shortcut route to that, even just in a digital sense, to explore digital identity and play with those digital identity frameworks is something that can be really empowering for an individual. And then to tie all of this together into exploring edutainment, which is, how you imbue education into entertainment from not just this is a maths game type perspective. If you're familiar with the concept of flow state, it's about basically finding that perfect balance between difficulty and enjoyment, where your mind just is completely focused on what's happening in front of you. You're not thinking, you're just in the zone. It happens in pro sports and all of this stuff. It happens all the time in gaming because games are designed to lock you in and challenge you, but also reward you and give you that sense of accomplishment. It happens sometimes in work, but it takes very careful curation to do that in a work environment, but it happens very rarely in education. So if you're able to take that enjoyment journey of entertainment and gamification, but imbue educational experiences through that, which can even adapt in real time, be AI driven, and this AI can basically imagine like a choose your own adventure where each of your choices is informing this AI to build a personality profile around you and challenge you in new ways that are relevant to you as an individual and your strengths and weaknesses. That to me is just an incredibly massive opportunity to actually kind of bring this sort of benefit to the world as a whole, because one of the best investments that we can ever make as a society is in education, but it's something that is woefully underinvested with current educational and kind of government structures that are focused on short-term cycles.
So how would they interact with each other? How would it work? I mean, how do you see it?
Where we're trying to transition all this over to is the AR app, where you basically go and play as your character. You see it in your own world, you complete different tasks and missions with it, and then you unlock actual game items that are also then NFTs and kind of end up having their own.
And how
value.
would two AVAs communicate?
Basically, one of the factors that we're really interested in, that we're doing a lot of R&D work on right now, is this idea of remote multiplayer in AR.
Right.
Basically what that means is that I could be in my house, you could be here, and we could both scan a flat surface in our respective spaces and put our AVA there, but also see each other's respective AVAs
That's cool.
together. And then basically you have someone's external person's presence in your space without them even seeing your space.
Right.
And that's where I think it starts to get really fun.
So I can mount cameras. It's literally, I put the thing roughly where I want it. They create the track, and what I'll do is I'll say, this is how close I want the bus to miss this thing.
And this is your next major project.
This one's near and dear to me.
What do you think about this kind of game-movie combo that is both things?
Here's the thing. The game has a story, and when I read the game that I wrote and I forgot about it, I'm like, this could be a really cool movie. Yeah. So we've heard about AR. You can have games. You can have, it could be so fun because it's got a little LiDAR thing that can scan the room, and it's a see-through lens.
All these three headsets were, they had their own computing, they had their own OS, and they had very sophisticated array of sensors to get the job done.
Yeah.
And they're exactly how you were describing, transparent glasses, and the AR content is projected onto your space, all that kind of stuff. When I started working with those things, I swore to myself I'm never going to touch mobile AR again. And the sense of space just immediately felt very attractive. I was like, humans have evolved to use their bodies and grab things and do things, and so it made a lot of sense, but especially from an experiential perspective, right? Like, I think AR is really powerful because it's still mostly anchored in your space.
Yeah.
And that's something that tricky with VR, because when you put VR, you have no geographical sense of where you are.
Yeah.
It's just a very completely removed dream state.
Yeah.
But if you have, let's say, like I put a hologram of someone here, or put an AVA here or something, even when you're not wearing the AR headset or phone, you're walking by, you're kind of your mind's gonna remember that it was here. It's anchored.
Kind of creepy.
It's creepy. I've always called it like a ghostly presence of AR that's left behind, which is really like a really fun idea. So a lot of the work we were doing was like that. The reason we are now doing mobile AR is because I came to learn that in order to develop a new medium of storytelling, you need an audience.
Yeah.
And as much as I love these headsets, they don't have an audience.
Yeah.
And
that's why VR never really caught.
Same with VR, exactly. Yeah. So I think that AR with mobile phones actually has a lot of untapped potential right now, because the sensors and the LiDAR, it's gotten really good over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
The types of things we can do now, we weren't able to do 3 years ago. So yeah, I think we're at a point now where actually mobile phones can do a lot with AR. And I think that a mistake that people have made is people have kind of treated AR as a medium that requires like high frequency things. Like in our case, we're treating AR as this like holy thing that you don't need to be in AR all the time, but when you have this 5-minute experience in AR, it's so magical and captivating that it allows you to kind of create this imagined value. What I like about AR the most is exactly like that sense of presence you can create for something foreign in your space, and how you can kind of look at your space differently after you've had this experience. So imagine like an immersive experience you're doing in your bedroom in which, let's say, like a ghost is hiding under your bed or something, or something comes out of the wall, or all those kinds of moments end up actually feeling very impactful because they change your perception of your intimate space. Like a movie is still removed from reality. It's like you're kind of going into this new world, versus with AR, we're messing with your reality. And that's, just imagine how powerful that concept is. Like imagine a platform on scale that is millions of people all across the world that believe in these invisible things they're seeing on top of the physical planet.
It's definitely a whole new kind of medium,
Yeah.
So that's why I got involved with Jadu.
When we were kind of thinking like, who do we work with on AVAs? And obviously like you were a key part of the largest robot IP in pop culture.
Well, so Steven, when he called me, he goes, "I'd like you to do Transformers," and that I'm like, I remember I was in the edit room, and I go, okay, all right. And I hung up, and I'm like, I was very interested in the lore and the origin, but it's that idea of movies, that robot had to be so real. This is how you get emotion from robots. They have to emote. And I'll show you some footage in a second.
Yeah, I mean, like when we were kind of discussing AVA design, that was kind of the first thing you said was like, how do we get the eyes to emote?
Because eyes, like even the shape of the eyes give you different emotions. Some imagery that you had that I really liked.
You saw Blink, which was one of our...
I like that one. That's good.
No, I think a lot of people like Blink. We designed it to be our most common one, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Because that was the one I used on the thing. I said, I like this one.
Exactly. Everyone seems to love Blink. It's great.
Why do you think? Because it's got attitude.
Yeah, I think, and that was kind of the thing we were trying to capture as well, right? Like with just they're just icons, but you're not going to see the face most of the time because when you're playing an AR, you're getting the backside. Yeah. So when you do see the face, you want it to be very like immediately punchy and expressive.
That makes sense.
One thing we're doing with the Bay AVAs though, right? Like the special edition AVAs, like what we discussed was instead of having faces, we are actually adding grills. That kind of brings more focus on the eyes almost. Like I think it makes them even more intense. I mean, for us, like having them work in AR is the most key element.
Yeah, I'm living in your world, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
like,
honestly,
just helping with your design and your design team, and it's been fun. I've been learning a lot about this this metaverse?
I think that this vision of the metaverse where you kind of like go to Facebook Workplace wearing your suit, your avatar is wearing a suit, it's just, that's not what's going to happen.
Yeah,
you know, I think the way people are treating work and socializing is a lot more fluid. People want to role play as characters. They want to be whatever they want. If you want to live your life as a dragon and go and do things online as a dragon, do it as a dragon. Like, it's, you know, like that's kind of, I think, what's exciting about this space to people.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and maybe you consider watching one of my other videos. Bunnies up!